In 2009, Malawi was the second fastest growing economy in the world after Qatar. By 2013, that economic growth had declined to just over 4%. But 1 month ago, Peter Mutharika took over as Malawi's new president. He says he will reverse the economic decline, reduce dependency on foreign aid currently at 40% of recurrent expenditure, and continue strengthening ties with China, whose relations were established just over 6 years ago by Malawi's former president, his brother, the late Binguwa Mutharika. Well, Talk Africa spoke with President Mutharika in the capital, Lilongwe. He talked of his ambitious economic plans and his new administration's foreign policy moving forward.
Born in 1940 in Chisoka, Nyasaland, Arthur Peter Mutharika was sworn in as the 5th President of the Republic of Malawi on the 31st of May 2014.
I was looking forward.
Running on the opposition Democratic Progressive Party ticket, Mutharika beat the incumbent Dr. Joyce Banda in a protracted election. Before ascending to the presidency, Mutharika previously held various cabinet positions as Minister of Justice and later as Minister for Education, Science and Technology. He also served as Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2011 to 2012. Prior to joining politics, Mutharika worked extensively in the area of international justice. He received his law degree from the University of London in 1965 before proceeding to Yale University. As a professor, Mutharika taught at University of Dar es Salaam, Haile Selassie University, Rutgers University, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research for Foreign Service Officers from Africa and Asia at Makerere University, and later at Washington University.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Now, you are the new president of Malawi, your brother of the late President Binguwa Mutharika. How different are you going to be? How different is your administration going to be?
I think if you're talking about the policies in the manifesto, for example, obviously some will continue. For example, food security, that will continue. Or infrastructure development, for example, rural growth and empowerment of women and the youth, those will continue from where it stopped. Now, if you're talking about specific decisions will depend on the certain objective factors at a given time. So it's very difficult to say what kind of decision I'll make. It will be different from a decision he would have made. It will depend on the issues, but in terms of policies, most of them certainly will continue, but as our manifesto reflects, but there of course be some new policies.
You're talking about continuation of policies, and in your inauguration speech you talked about strengthening ties with China and other emerging economies like Brazil. Can you expound on that?
Yes, what I'm saying is that we have three types of relationships now, maybe four, of course, within the African region, within SADC and African Union, very important economic relationships there. And then secondly, of course, we have relations with the old friends, United States, France, Germany, and so forth, Britain. And third, China, the sort of, and maybe India. And finally, fourth, the emerging countries, Brazil, the BRICS. As you know, the biggest investment in the history of this country, $2 billion, is from Brazil. The rail line, which I negotiated when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, cuts through from Ortiz to the other side of Malawi. And there's $2 billion, that's from the newer emerging economies, the BRICS. So we have all sorts of relationships, and they're not mutually exclusive.
All right. In terms of China, though, it's now over 6 years since Malawi changed its policy, foreign policy from Taiwan to China. What's been the impact of that change in policy?
Oh, I think the impact has been tremendous, especially in the area of infrastructure development. You want into that drive in town, you'll see the Parliament building, you'll see the convention center, you'll see the hotels, you'll see the University of Science and Technology in Cholo, the Karunga Kitipa Road, and now the stadium, which will be completed very, very shortly. East of the city here, 5 major infrastructure projects which have made a tremendous impact on the skyline of this country. So the impact has been tremendous, yes.
All right, the impact has been tremendous, but you're seeking an enhanced partnership now with China. In what areas, what key sectors of your economy do you want that cooperation?
Well, again, infrastructure development, that's one. That's a key one because that's important. We still need to build more roads and more structures. That's one area, and they like to invest in that. Would like to interest them in investing in other sectors, education, for example, and they've helped us with science education, technical education. We'd like to get knowledge, technology from China, that area. And probably in the area of health, China has a very advanced medical system, which is also universal. Almost everyone has access to it. And would like them to assist us to employ some of the sort of methods that China is using to make sure there is a broad access to health, but also preventive medicine, as opposed to curative medicine. They're very good at that. So those are some of the areas that we certainly would like to enhance the relationship.
All right. China is now, though, Africa's largest trade partner, and Africa is becoming China's fastest growing trade partner, surpassing other Asian countries, though. In terms of bilateral trade and bilateral relations, what does this portend in terms of bilateral relations with China and Africa, and specifically for China and Malawi?
Well, the implications are that it will grow. It will continue to grow because in China, they give us over 400 items which are duty-free without reciprocity. So they have a very, very broad general system, what they call GSP, general system preferences, which is recommended by UNCTAD, by the UN, but they apply it at bilateral level without reciprocity with respect to Malawi, but also many African countries, and that's a tremendous sort of form of assistance. And that has increased trade between Malawi and Africa and China because of its preferential system.
Last year, though, the balance of trade between your country and China was something at about $300 million, I presume. Are you concerned about the imbalance of trade as other countries are?
Oh, well, yes, there's one imbalance of trade. Every country gets concerned whenever there's a trade deficit. You're always concerned. Every country wants to sell more and buy less, and that's universal. We're not able to do so, and most African countries are not able to do so, not only with respect to China, but also with respect to European Union, for example, and United States, France, and Germany. We'll have a trade deficit for these countries. The answer is to improve our products, to produce them in such a way that they're of global standards, so they can compete on the global market as attractive, but also that they are reasonably priced. So that involves a lot of things. It involves the strength of our currency and their currencies and all sorts of things. We're going to be looking at those, and we'll try to reduce the imbalance, but it's very difficult for the young countries because we're already producing enough to change the trade deficit. But we're working in that direction for sure.
Your economic growth, though, last year was at about 4 to 5%, down from 9%, I think, in 2009. First, what led to the decline? And secondly, what is your economic recovery plan?
I think what the decline was, obviously, we're not able to export as much as we wanted, and then there are a lot of other difficulties involved with the economy, and I think that's what led. The economy shrunk, there was less manufacturing, with the absence of foreign exchange, you could import manufacturing, equipment, materials for manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So that made a difference. We will be changing, obviously. One way we're going to do is obviously to expand the economic base. First of all, we need to move away from agriculture, especially tobacco, to other types of products, agricultural products, especially legumes, but also sugar, cotton, and so forth. We need to do that. We need to add value to products like tobacco. We are not adding value or exporting manufactured tobacco. When I was growing up, we used to make cigarettes here. Something happened, we're not making it now. And we need to do that. You know, we have a lot of trees in Malawi, but we still imported toothpicks. Now we can make them here without importing them. So a lot of things, a lot of oranges here, tomatoes, but we still import tomato juice and orange juice. We have tomatoes here. So we can do manufacturing at a small scale, and that will obviously reduce the need to have use a foreign exchange. So we'll do that. Now, if we expand, if move from agriculture, say to mining, for example. Mining today comprises about 10% of our GDP, but it can go up to 20% within 5 years because of some very important minerals which are here. Niobium, for example, rare earth, one of the most important minerals for making cell phones. Malawi has the greatest reserve in the world, what we are told. You see that we have uranium, we have limestone, and many others, possibly gold and so forth. So if you can use our minerals properly, and we're able to structure agreements which are favorable, we can increase our earnings. We can multiply our earnings from minerals. And that will make a difference in terms of how the economy grows. So we'll be doing that. It will be a question of change of policy. Our mining policy, we'll be talking about new mining legislation. We're talking about that, and we'll be talking about a new unit in the OPC to negotiate these mining contracts, and so on and so forth. So those will change clearly the structure of the economy and should bring in more money. And I think changing the economy, we should be able to grow at up to about 7.5%. That's what I say. During the first administration, we grew at over 7% for five to 6 years. And we were the second fastest growing economy after Kuwait, after Qatar, and we don't even have oil. And we're able to sustain it for 5 years. So we can do that, and we hope to do that. So just give us a bit of time. Soon we'll be announcing dramatic policy initiatives.
All right, but tobacco though has been the mainstay of your economy at accounting for about 75% of your foreign exchange earnings. Though I mean, it is facing a huge backlash from anti-lobby groups. What impact is that having on your economy, and how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, it definitely is negative. There's no question about it. This new framework on tobacco consumption, World Health Organization, it's having an impact, especially on barley. And we are the largest producer of barley. I think barley is about 7% of, in fact, I'll be meeting the CEO of Tobacco Control Commission this afternoon, I think at 3:30. We want to find out what we can do in this particular area. It is true that tobacco is an industry that's dying. Even in China, we're the biggest consumer there, Vietnam and places like that, they'll probably begin also to reduce consumption, because this movement, anti-tobacco movement, is now spreading everywhere. So we're aware of that, that we must begin gradually. Tobacco will always be there. People have been smoking since biblical times, and people always smoke. So there will be somebody somewhere who will buy our tobacco, but it will be at a smaller scale. So we need to substitute other crops, but also minerals and other products. Yeah.
All right, you've just mentioned that you want your economy to grow by about 7% by the end of the year.
By the end of 5 years.
By the end of 5 years, I believe. But Malawi is highly dependent on foreign aid, making up about 40% of your budget. You yourself have talked about reducing that dependency gradually on the foreign aid. How are you going to do that? And do you think it is a sustainable method, foreign aid for developing countries?
Yes, we have to reduce. We're going to aid for recurrent budget, not development budget. In fact, foreign aid comprises 87% of the development budget, and almost every country in the world. There's no country in the world that is self-sufficient. Even the United States borrows a lot of money from China. If China pulled all its money from the United States, the American economy would collapse. You know that. All the treasury bills in the United States are financed in China. So every country depends on inflows for development budgets, and that will continue in this country. But for recurrent, it's 40%. During our time, we reduced it to 31%. That's gone back to actually 41% during the previous administration. We would like to reduce that. And the reality will be, because the budget coming in September will probably not have the 40%, we don't know if the CABs, the country that support the common approach to budget support, a basket of 6 or 7 countries, including the World Bank and the African Development Bank, that support the budget. As you know, they have suspended since Casgate, since March this year. We don't know they'll be back, if they'll be back by September. If they're not, then we'll do this budget without the 40% that they supply. You may ask you where you'll get the money. Well, if I was Houdini, I would just do this and get the 40%. That won't happen. And therefore, we will try to cut expenditure somewhere. We'll reduce travel budgets, both domestic and international. Already, by reducing the cabinet, I'm saving over 20 million a year. At the end of 5 years, I'll saved over 1.5 billion by simply reducing budget and the cabinets to 20. So we'll cut back where we can without hurting people, obviously. And there'll be some savings there, and we hope there'll be some earnings from some of these minerals that are now beginning to show up, and maybe even tobacco and others. And for a combination of those, we may be able to I think, sustain the current budget for this coming year.
How much, though, minerals here are we talking about, and when do you expect to start mining of that mineral?
At the moment, to get about 10% of our GDP is from minerals, from mining. We hope to, we have uranium, and we have some coal here, and limestone. We have quite a few. We will expand that. We're discovering more and more minerals, so we'll expand that. And in future, we may have oil and gas, under the lake. We'll try to see whether, in fact, is viable, feasible. So we'll explore all sorts of areas, but there's no question that we'll be reducing dependence. Everyone wants to, including our partners themselves. Now, countries like Kenya, for example, Ethiopia, others have had this for years. Botswana, they have been self-sufficient with respect to the current budget, current expenditure recurrent expenditure for years. So we can do it.
All right, Excellency, I know my time is up, but I just need one more comment from you. I mean, it is early days in your administration. What message would you want to give the African continent and your strong partner, China?
What message? Well, first of all, that they're welcome to come here. As partners, we're very interested in, determined to develop this country. We'll create conditions which are conducive to investment, atmosphere. We'll create that, and we'll certainly cooperate with them. And we wanted them to come with us here as partners, and we'll develop this country and the world together. I think that's the message I can give them.
All right, Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Good luck.
Ever since independence in 1964, Malawi had pursued a largely pro-Western foreign policy and had established ties with Taiwan. But in 2007, the late President Peter Mutharika took a bold step and sought ties with China. Well, that has led to tremendous development and major financing from China. Malawi's Foreign Minister George Chaponda explains the shift in policy. But first, we shed light on Malawi's agricultural policies, once hailed as enabling Malawi become the region's breadbasket and a model of food security on the continent.
For many outside Africa, Malawi may be known for being pop star Madonna's favourite adoption destination. To the rest of Africa, Malawi, in the middle of the last decade, became renowned for being at the forefront of the continent's green revolution by increasing agriculture production. Under the late Peter Mutharika, Malawi produced enough to eat at home and even export, earning a reputation as a breadbasket in the SADC region. Then something somewhere went wrong. In a few years, though, Malawi could return to food self-sufficiency and reclaim its role as a breadbasket. This is because President Peter Mutharika has announced a continuation of policy in agriculture that saw Malawi lead by example in Africa. In 2008, riding high on the success of its fertilizer subsidy program, Malawi became a regional exporter, hoping to profit from booming food prices. Malawi's agriculture turned a corner after the drought in 2005, which left close to 5 million people in need of food aid. One of the secrets of the country's success in agriculture lies in subsidized fertilizers.
Honourable Minister, thank you very much for giving us your time. Now, you're taking over, of course, the new administration is taking over when Malawi has some disagreements with neighbouring countries, namely Tanzania and Mozambique. Clarify for us, what is the status of those disagreements?
Well, I will not say that there are disagreements as such, but I think there are issues which have to be resolved. As you know, there is an issue of centered on the border dispute with Tanzania over Lake Malawi. Malawi has always said that we consider the lake as belonging to Malawi historically through the treaties and so on, which goes back to 1890s and so on. And I think Tanzania has been arguing on the basis of the international law, based on the international law, that it is the middle line which should divide the Lake Malawi. And ourselves, we have been arguing that we have to go back on the basis of the treaty of, I think, 1st July 1890. And because we could not agree on it, the previous government decided to bring in mediators, that is the former presidents of South Africa, Mozambique, and I think Angola. They have been involved in the mediation in this particular matter. The mediators decided to suspend negotiations when we were engaged in the tripartite elections, but we hope that they will be coming back with their decision in this matter. Now, as a new government ourselves, we will look at their decision, and if we find that it is favorable, fine. If we find it is not favorable and is not in the best interest of Malawi, then we'll move on. By moving on, that means we will proceed to the International Court of Justice, because we'll have lived to say that we have exhausted domestic at the domestic level.
Has this had any souring impact, though, between your relations with Mozambique and your relations with Tanzania?
Not really. I'm talking here primarily on the issue of our relationship with Tanzania. As far as Mozambique is concerned, there is no dispute in terms of the border. I think what we are negotiating with Mozambique, and I think we will pursue that discussion, is that we would like to have an entrance to the sea, through developing the port of Nsanje. We would like to engage Mozambique in these discussions, and I think there is hope, because listening to from the parliament in Mozambique, there are also Mozambicans living on the side which we would like to build the port. There are looking forward that maybe they could also benefit from that. But these are issues that you don't push, but you engage in a dialogue. I think Malawi has always appreciated the sovereignty of other countries, and whenever we are doing anything, we would like to negotiate with them and reach to a mutually acceptable solution.
Malawi, though, is currently the chair of the Southern African Development Community. What is Malawi championing?
Malawi is championing food security. As you know, the late Bingu, when he was chair of the African Union, is championed for Africa's food basket. And I'm pleased to know that at the meeting recently held in Malabo in Equatorial Guinea, they again looked upon agriculture as food security. And informally talking with the with the Secretariat of the African Union, they told us that they were inspired by the vision of the late Bingu in ensuring that Africa should be self-sufficient in food. And also that Malawi has always set the example in that direction, at least during the time when he was the president. And also that the government of Professor Peter Mutharika has been towing the same line, for instance, by talking about the Green Belt Initiative, using of the mechanized equipment instead of the hoe and access and so on, and talking about commercial farming in a big scale and so on. All this is an indication of promoting self-sufficiency in food. And that is an issue that was being championed when chair was under the SADC. Not forgetting also our peacekeeping initiatives, which Malawi is known of. We have, for instance, had our peacekeeping missions in the DRC, and I think that is something which has been appreciated by SADC and even by the African Union.
Well, Malawi is talking about continuing with its peacekeeping initiatives in the DRC, continuing championing in its role in the South African development community. What can the African continent, though, expect from Malawi? It's early days in this administration. What can the African continent expect from Malawi?
What the African continent can can expect from Malawi, that will continue to champion the peacekeeping initiative, peacekeeping forces, wherever we are called upon to assist, and will continue championing the issues of food security and advocating that a country cannot be independent unless you are good in self-sufficiency in food. And I think we will also take a lead in this in our own country by making sure that we are self-sufficient, and also sharing with our neighbors, the SADC, African Union, in this particular field.
What would you say, though, to your strong partner, China?
Strong partner, China, we say, please don't leave us. The same way that we started, let's move together and give us a hearing. And when we have a very, this agenda, development agenda, under the leadership of Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, please assist us wherever you can. We would like not only to talk rhetoric, but we want to implement, because it's a government which is interested in implementing, especially on issues like the Green Belt Initiative, which we are championing, the issue of having youth skilled labor through the community colleges which will be established, and many other things. Trade links, we would like to have more trade links with China, and also want to develop in the issues, for instance, of mining and other things.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your time. Thank you.